Body horror is a genre that focuses on physical mutilation, deformity, or transformation of the human body in a disturbing or grotesque manner. Prepare yourself as we explore themes of fear, revulsion, and terrifying narratives where the human body becomes the subject of distortion and brutality.
Knock knock. Socy Dark Talks is back.
Every grave represents a person, their life, and what they leave behind. It's a reminder that we only get one chance at life, and we should make the most of it. But is that really true? I've experienced something so strange that even you won't believe it. My boyfriend of 2 years was killed by an 18-wheeler when he was just 21. He was riding his motorcycle home from work, and the truck driver didn't see him until it was too late. His funeral was heartbreaking, with so many people who loved him unable to say goodbye. It was a closed casket service, and as he was laid to rest 6 feet underground, I felt crushed, believing I'd never see him again. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur. I was consumed by grief and sadness, drowning my sorrows in alcohol and cigarettes. Our love was powerful, the kind you only read about in fairy tales. We were soulmates meant for each other. That's why I believe he came back to me. The night he returned was cold and stormy, with wind howling and occasional bursts of thunder. I lay in bed sipping rum and listening to the sounds outside. Suddenly, a new sound echoed through the house, a knock on the door. It was 3 in the morning, and I wondered who could be there. I crept downstairs, heading toward the door to find out, but when I reached it, I saw it was already open. I gasped, surprised that it was unlocked when I always kept it locked at night. I rushed to close it, struggling against the wind, then locked it. I heard a soft groan from down the hall and felt a brief wave of fear. I saw muddy footprints leading toward the sound. I knew I should leave, but something compelled me to follow the footsteps. I stopped, hiding behind a wall, and saw what looked like a corpse. The man was emaciated, rotten, and smelled terrible. His flesh peeled as mud slopped off onto the kitchen floor. I was shocked to realize it was my boyfriend. He had returned. His decaying hand reached into the fridge, pouring himself a glass of orange juice. The juice spilled out of his throat onto the floor. Suddenly, he turned, as if he sensed my presence. I hid behind the wall, but he saw me anyway.
"Hey baby, it's me. Don't be afraid,"
he said in a voice that sounded darker and more sinister than ever before. I stood there, completely shocked, trying to understand what was happening.
"That truck messed me up pretty bad, but it doesn't matter because my love for you brought me back,"
he went on. I dashed down the hall toward the door. In that moment, I realized this couldn't be real. I was terrified.
"Babe, where are you going?"
he asked, pacing toward me down the hall. His skin was peeling, revealing more bone than flesh. There was a hole in his neck, with orange juice still dripping from it, and his eye was covered with maggots and other insects. I screamed, trying to unlock the door.
"It's going to be okay, baby. We can finally be together forever,"
he shouted. I finally unlocked the door, but as I opened it, he approached me, grabbing my face and giving me a long kiss on the lips. It was the same kiss I had missed since he was gone.
"I love you,"
he said. Everything was fine at first. Really, it was... When Karen and I first started going out, she'd playfully nibble on my lip, or tease my ear, or pretend to be a vampire and gently bite my neck. How silly we looked. We were just like any other couple, but things eventually took a turn. Sometimes her bites would be a bit too hard, and I'd ask her to ease up with a half smile, feeling a little annoyed. Then one time, she bit down on my chest too hard while we were fooling around, and I snapped at her, "What are you doing?" She didn't take it well. We didn't speak for nearly a week. I apologized over and over again, and eventually we made up, but something felt off. Karen started acting weird, Whenever we joked around, she'd grab my arm and pretend to chew on it, making biting motions in the air and pretending my arm was like an ear of corn. She'd make strange comments whenever I chopped vegetables, saying things like, "Be careful not to cut off your fingers. You might end up seasoning the carrots with them." And she'd burst out laughing. Sometimes she'd gaze at me with longing, but not at my face. I'd catch her staring at my bare feet or the top of my head. Whenever I brought it up, she'd dismiss it, saying she had zoned out or felt a bit odd. If I questioned her comments or actions, she'd get upset, accusing me of attacking her sense of humor. There was no way to resolve it, so eventually I just let it go. I ended up marrying her. She was eccentric and found humor in things I didn't always get, but I loved her, and she accepted me. I want to mention that I've been in a wheelchair my whole adult life. When I was 16, my father and I were working on a fencing project, moving wood and materials up and down our basement stairs. On one trip, I slipped on the top step and fell backwards, breaking my back and becoming paralyzed from the waist down. As you can imagine, my life changed completely, but Karen was always there for me. We met in college, and I could tell right away that she was special. She treated me like a person, and I was drawn to that. Even as her personality seemed to change, with her jokes getting weirder and her behavior more questionable, I still knew she was the love of my life, so we got married. Things only got worse from there. Our marriage was a mess. We argued a lot, mostly about money and normal relationship stuff, but many fights started because I'd bring up her strange behavior, like pretending to bite me. She'd ask why I picked her, why I couldn't just accept her faults. It was a never-ending cycle. I got really sad, and Karen ended up quitting her job. She said she needed to be at home to work on herself. While I worked long hours at a call center, often 12 to 14 hours a day, she stayed home cooking huge meals. I'd return to find pots of beef stew, big steaks with potatoes, cakes, pastries, and lots of pasta. She'd watch me closely as we ate, making sure everything was to my liking. I gained a lot of weight, and most days I was slouched in my wheelchair, too tired to do much. Feeling depressed, overweight, and unmotivated, I eventually quit my job too. I started receiving unemployment benefits and spent my days sitting in my chair, watching TV or playing video games while Karen kept cooking. Even though we had less money, she always seemed to buy lots of groceries. We ended up eating way too many carbs and sugar. I ballooned to over 350 pounds. This was our life. And Karen continued her charade. She would poke my stomach, talking about how much fat she could use to grease the pans. She would make nasty comments about my arms and how the skin on my biceps could be chopped off and thrown in the fryer. This went on for 2 years. It's a late Saturday night. I'm in my chair in the living room. I can hardly move my arms, struggling to type this. I'm completely drained and bloated, and I can hear her singing. I wish she'd stop. I just want her to be quiet for a few seconds. There's a big pot on the stove, and I hear the water boiling. She's chopping carrots and tossing them in. She keeps glancing back at me, smiling, and singing. It's Fall Out Boy's My Songs Know What You Did in the Dark, but the lyrics are different. She's got the right tune, but it sounds like she's singing,
Eat him up, up, up. Eat him up, up, up.
I usually like to watch TV with my little sister Kimberly. She was only 5, so, of course, she watched all the cutesy kids shows. I didn't really mind, though. They made her happy, and I liked spending time with her. She watched shows like Dora, Blue's Clues, and Arthur. We often had a lot of DVDs of old kids' shows around the house that we would watch. There was a large box of old movies and TV shows in the attic. I took a brief look at it once, but none of them looked like they would appeal to her. One day, Kimberly was at a doctor's appointment, and I thought I'd have time to watch a movie aimed more towards my age range. So I thought this would be a good time to look through the box of old movies in the attic. As I dug through the box, none of the movies really caught my interest, but I kept looking, hoping to find something. Then, at the bottom of the box, I saw a DVD labeled Colwyn's Corner. Memories came flooding back. I used to watch that show when I was a kid. It was about this orange puppet named 𝐒𝐲 who lived in a house on the corner of a street. He'd have his puppet friends over to play games and sing songs. It was cute and innocent, and I really liked it back then. I figured it might be a good show for my sister and me to watch together. When Kimberly came home, I told her I found a new show for us to watch. She got excited and sat on the couch while I put the DVD in. As the selection screen appeared showing 𝐒𝐲 and his friends, I sat beside her. I chose the first episode and the theme song started. I noticed some differences. The colors were darker, and the song was slower and deeper. But I didn't think much of it, assuming I just forgot some details from not watching for so long. The show started normally, with 𝐒𝐲 greeting the viewers. When there was a knock on his door, he said,
"I think my friends are here."
But when he opened the door, I was shocked. There were two tall white puppets with only pitch-black eyes, nothing like I remembered from the show. Even the DVD cover showed colorful, friendly puppets. I glanced at Kimberly, who had a big smile, which confused me because I thought such images would scare her. "Maybe we shouldn't watch this anymore," I suggested. "No, please, keep it on," she insisted. Despite the unsettling puppets, she seemed unfazed. The two big puppets walked into the house. 𝐒𝐲 asked,
"What do you guys want to do today?"
One of the puppets made this scary sound, like someone yelling in a weird language. The audio was all messed up. I got up and stopped the DVD in the VCR, even though Kimberly wanted to keep watching. "Why'd you stop it? Put it back on," she said. But I didn't listen. I put the DVD away in a drawer. Even though Kimberly wasn't bothered by the show, I thought it was too creepy for a 5-year-old. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about the video. I used to watch that show all the time when I was younger, and I'm pretty sure I'd seen every episode, so I didn't get why I didn't remember one like this. But I was still curious about the rest of the episode. I decided to go downstairs and finish it. I took the DVD out of the drawer and put it in the VCR. I wore headphones so the noise wouldn't bother my family. The episode started like usual, with the weird intro and the big puppets. After the scary noise from one puppet, 𝐒𝐲 said,
"You're right, let's play a game."
Then he grabbed a knife from the counter. It switched to a real arm painted orange to look like 𝐒𝐲's. The knife cut into the arm, making deeper cuts each time. 𝐒𝐲 screamed really loud, like he was in pain. I couldn't believe what I was watching. I felt sick. Blood poured out of the cuts while the screams got louder. Next, it switched to a real neck painted orange. The knife cut a deep slit in the throat, and blood started pouring out. It showed 𝐒𝐲 gasping for air, then his eyes turned completely white. The episode finished with him collapsing on the ground while the two tall white puppets stared directly into the camera with their pitch-black eyes. I was completely scared by this point. I quickly took out the DVD and threw it in the trash. I couldn't sleep at all that night. I kept thinking about the episode. The next morning, I went downstairs to have breakfast. As I passed by Kimberly's room, I noticed she wasn't there. When I got downstairs, I saw her on the couch, watching the same horrifying episode I saw last night. I immediately grabbed the remote and turned off the TV. "Why did you do that?" she asked. "Where did you find the DVD?" I yelled. "It was in the trash," she answered. "I took it out because I wanted to see the end of the episode." "What?" I exclaimed. "The episode was about 𝐒𝐲 and his friends baking a cake," she responded. I was surprised. "What did his friends look like?" I inquired. "One was blue and the other was red," she answered. "I really enjoyed it. Can I watch it again?" We hope you've had a good time and enjoyed this journey. If you dare to explore more terrifying stories, be sure to subscribe. Remember to leave a comment to share your thoughts on these macabre narratives. This is Socy Dark Talks. Stay curious and embrace the darkness.